Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are around the globe. This is VCTV by LATOKEN. Now, do me a favor, before we get on to the show itself, do click like, subscribe if you're from YouTube. If you're watching us from YouTube, excuse me, and if you're on our main page itself, do scroll down the links and you can see a few other topics and investors and some of the schedules that we have for the week, for the month. So we have shows lined up throughout, and even I think very close to the holiday seasons itself. So just do us a favor and look there. As we start, again, just to kind of start, I am Terence from LATOKEN, and I'm looking after VCTV, and I will moderate the session for today. Today on our panel, we have three on our panel today. Now, these are prominent investors. You may have seen them. They are the VCs that you know. And let's just start off with Kartik here. Introduction from yourself, Kartik. Where you're coming from, what you're representing. Tell us a bit.
Thank you so much, Terence. And as I count, this is the 14th session with LATOKEN. And
There
I
we
have
go.
one more after this, and then I think 7 more during the month. So this is only getting interesting as we speak. So e-commerce, I represent multiple hats. I represent active involvement in e-commerce from an operational and execution point of view. I'm helping 4 large companies into the digital transformation in different spaces, all the way from adventure gear to party celebrations to pharmaceuticals and cosmeceuticals and into home improvement. So that's where we are going through the e-commerce 2.0 as we speak. And from an investment point of view, I represent a body that continuously and actively looks for investments in this space, primarily now moving into certain algorithms that work on collaborative filtering, which is the recommender, which I'm going to talk about as we move, and a lot more into the last mile connectivity and CRM. So I wear both 2 hats, and both I keep changing my hats as and when I appear on different shows. But I'm an active watcher as well as an active investor in this space.
Great. And good to have you on board as well. We got a few points to cover. Let's move on to Anuj. Anuj, I see you there. I don't see an image of you. Show yourself to the world, Anuj.
Okay, mate. I hope you can see me now. Give me 1 second.
No worries.
Okay, I seem to be having a bit of an issue here.
No worries.
Allow me
Just
one
start
second.
off with a quick introduction first, and then
Sure.
I'll kind of move on from
Yes,
there.
introducing myself. I am an entrepreneur. I have started 3 startups over the last 10 years, 2 of them into e-commerce. At present, I am working as a founder for Yellow Sapphire Technologies and Atotum. Uh, at Yellow Sapphire Technologies, we are working as an IT partner for companies across the world, where we are helping them build their initial product, go to market, scale up their products. Uh, Along with it, I am an international partner at World Business Angel Forum, where we help uh, promote global financial inclusivity and entrepreneurship across the world as a G20 initiative. I work with iAngels in Israel for angel investments and a family fund based out of Buffalo, New York as well.
Great. Good to have you on board. And welcome again to all of you watching from wherever you are. This is a topic on consumers, e-commerce, and let's dive straight in, shall we? So I want to start off a bit, as usual, talking about, I guess, the topic itself. Let's try to define and look into what's happening at the moment. So as you know, we are still in that whole COVID-19 pandemic crisis, say whatever you want to call it. It's accelerating the expansion of e-commerce, at least, towards new firms, new customers, types, products. You see it from what you want, but what's the long-term shift like? What's that transition looking like? Kartik, could you give us a glimpse on what you're seeing at the moment?
So, from an active investor as well as an industry observer point of view, I look at a massive shift in the way businesses have been operating in the e space. Just before a year and a half ago, while there has been a mad rush to get into the e space, typically large businesses that either wanted to diversify into e-commerce, or tech businesses that wanted to set up e-commerce as a route to setting up marketplaces or businesses, was what was rampant. But in the last 12 months, especially in the pandemic, retailers and businesses which were operating primarily in the brick and mortar space and paying very little attention to the e-space have started diversifying and have been compelled to diversify. What used to be a percentage or two of the revenue has now started moving towards 10%, 15% of the revenue, and only increasing. While the already established players, which is typically your Amazon, Noon, Flipkart, Souk, and the world, has grown manifolds, the retailers have started to realize that it's not about now reaching out to the customers, it's now about survival. With Arcadia closing its shops, with Debenhams closing its shops, and with Topshop in trouble, it's only mandatory that these businesses move to the digital space and start operating on the newer unit matrix, newer profitability fundamentals, because the consumers are already attuned to it. Let's look at a case like the economy of Middle East. For example, in Dubai, today's shopper with Amazon and Noon operating and deliveries happening in as less as 3 to 4 hours, with discounts of anything between 30 to 45%, is already used to shopping 4 to 6 times in a quarter, or maybe 12 to 14 times in a year for almost everything, all the way from their essentials like groceries and home improvement to the fashion, lifestyle, travel, books, electronics. Today, everything, including fuel, has gone online, and hence the reason for a shopper to go to the retail mall or to an outlet is diminishing, with only food or entertainment being the last mile option available for him to go and consume. More importantly, a shift that we see is in terms of efficiencies and economies of e-commerce has started to increase, especially in the last 12 months. I see cost of acquisitions gone down from what used to be a hopping $28-30, has gone down to around $8.5 $9. Forced RFM has increased a shopper's RFM from around 1.2 1.3 times a month to around 2.5 3 4 times a month, primarily because of the groceries and home necessities becoming a part of an e-purchase. Average revenue per user, specifically in a part like this, has grown from around 120, 125 dirhams to around 270, 300 dirhams, making it all the more worthwhile for every business to go onto the space. But what is important is, while there is space for large businesses like Noon, Amazon, Souk, which are typical marketplaces with more than a few million products available online, there's always a space for niche and specialty businesses that are continuing to come out and grow on their own. So the space seems to be developing. The way it is moving is from a tech-enabled business where differentiator was only the technology, has now moved from tech-enabled business to a convergence where we are talking about services, where we are talking about product assortment, and more importantly, the last mile connectivity, or the last mile delivery, as we call it, the fulfillment, becoming a key differentiator. Because technology of late has been democratized to a level where anything from Shopify to Magento is available for a few $1,000s. What used to be a multi-million investment 10 years ago is just about a few hundred dollars investment in today's world. So it is democratized to a level, and hence it's the experience that is continuously driving or becoming a differentiator in the space. That's my opening remarks. I will get into details as we move forward.
Yeah, definitely. Anuj, I hope you can hear us at this time. We are kind of starting off by looking at the space itself, the consumer e-commerce, and trying to kind of take it off from the COVID era right up to where it's going to get in the next few months. Could you tell us a bit of what you're looking and what you're forecasting?
So, my entry to e-commerce was in 2011. And looking at the e-commerce that we had then versus looking at e-commerce now, it's completely different. It's a whole new world altogether. I want to take something from what Kartik was saying. He was mentioning about Alibaba, about tech not being the factor anymore. And I think he's right. There's one more point I want to add here. Back in 2011, when I had ventured into e-commerce, there were almost 32 horizontal players that were working at a significant volume. As of right now, that number stands at 3. With of those 3 as well, of course, the top 2 just in India, being Amazon and Flipkart, they have the majority share. They are leading the market in its entirety. Then comes the vertical players, the players that are working in one single niche, that are just developing off of it and then focusing entirely on one single department. And that is where I see the next revolution coming in. Uh, Speaking in terms of the numbers that are recently being generated right now, take an example for China. Uh, just for one day, the Singles Day sale, this year they pulled in, I believe, somewhere around 115 billion or 120 billion dollars, and that's a huge number. When you're comparing that to the entire Southeast Asia, that's a number that probably we pull in the entire year, maybe even lesser. I don't have the numbers with me right now, so I'd really appreciate if someone can fact check me on this. But yeah, that's where the innovation is coming in. There isn't going to be a new vertical. There isn't going to be a new horizontal player that's going to come in, that's going to take fight with Alibaba. We all remember when Jet tried doing that, and they, to an extent, were successful as well until they were acquired by Walmart. I don't see that happening anytime soon. The next innovation that I see coming is going to be in terms of complementing the existing technology rather than competing with it. That has to be the name of the game. Kartik mentioned about fulfillment, and I think that's where one key criteria is coming up. In terms of D2C companies, take those for an example. When you have companies like Amazon that are delivering the product to tier 1 cities either same day or at best next day, the user does not have any incentive to go for an alternate company, which may take probably a day extra. In doing that right now, it may seem like a chore that, oh, Amazon will deliver it next day, the other company will take it 2 or 3 days. Why should I buy from them? And the reason that has happened is because Amazon has perfected it to such a degree that it now just seems like a new normal. So taking that perfection and bringing that as an innovative concept in itself in supply chain, where you can have micro warehousing set up across the country and you have D2C sellers working with those organizations to make sure that even they can set up fulfillment, or they can complete their order fulfillment within a span of a day or two to everyone, is where you will find some new innovation coming in. That is where you'll see the next hub coming in. Amazon has done the closest analogy I can give you is Amazon has set up the Touch ID. It's now up to every other company to build off of it to a level where it just becomes an industry standard.
Right. Kind of touching on that as well. We want to look at the change. Of course, I think we've changed quite a bit in the past few months even. That acceleration is no doubt something very noticeable. Is the focus still on omni-channel, or is it going to be solely on e-commerce? I think let's talk about the consumers and businesses itself. How's that landscape changing? Kartik, can you kind of cue us in on this one?
Yeah, so I think I would have 3 different views on 3 different points on this. And let's go back 5, 7 years, 10 years. From an investor, and I would first take an investor point of view on the table. Investors were primarily worried about valuations, which is about how many users did you have, how many active shoppers did you have, what kind of site visits did you have, and what kind of gross businesses or gross revenue as you had in the business. Of late, last 3 years, with cash burn increasing significantly, investors and businesses have moved from scaling endlessly into making a profitable business, which is where unit matrices, which is where last mile connectivity costs, which is where conversions, sessions, repeats, cost per clicks, cost of acquisition, cost per user, retention, lifetime value matrices have started coming in. So for 6, 7, 10 years ago, endless dollars were poured into the business. Now, dollars are poured on a matrix basis, You set up a matrix, you bring your cost of acquisition down to around $15. You would have one more round of investment being made into your business. You start bringing your CPR or your retention up to around 47-48%, you would have one more round of investment coming into the business. So both the investors as well as the businesses are being watchful. They've moved away from just about driving valuations into driving business successes. More importantly, today it's the fundamental rule of retail that has started playing in. It's the product and the experience that runs the rules. It's primarily about experiential selling, which means the user journey, the ease at which you can shop on your platform, your single click checkout, or your single click connectivity, or your single click shopping, or in terms of your value added services. Are you as a business trying to bring in valet services, what Smithsonian Vault does, or are you bringing in functionalities like a try and buy, or are you bringing in a convergence 2.0? Especially in a specialty business, convergence 2.0 is what is being a differentiator. In the past, it was always about selling a particular product because it was the product and the discount was important. But now product is added, or product is complemented with services. It is complemented with an experience, which is the last mile. And more importantly, it is complemented with a community engagement. Because at the end of the day, it's an entire community that you look at. Give you an example. A specialty business like adventure or outdoor or fitness, let's take an example of a bike being purchased. In the past, it was only about a bike being sold online, and people would go and buy a Scott bike and they would be happy that I bought it at $700. But now the same shopper looks at a recommender, that is there a solution selling happening online when I buy a bike? Is the website or the portal intuitive enough to give me an idea about what are the other alternative elements in the business that I need? More importantly, is there a service guarantee that comes along with it? Do they have a service ecosystem where they fulfill the products? Do they have a community wherein they not only sell a product to me, but they make me a part of a community which engages and helps me use my product? And then how well do they cover all of these together? And that is where businesses are moving, primarily in premium fashion, in lifestyle, or more importantly, even in any specialty business. And these trends are only likely to continue.
Right, I agree.
From a consumer point of view, the expectations are changing. I was at Seamless 2020 this year, and we were trying to understand how the consumer expectations are changing. With a Zomato or a Swiggy or a Talabat delivering food in 30 minutes, with a Now and InstaShop delivering grocery in 45 minutes, the shopper threshold has minimized. In the past, he was happy to wait for 48 hours for a product to be delivered. Today, 24 hours is also a lot. He's used to, or he's been spoiled for options with a Zomato telling him that your valet's name is Ahmed, Ahmed's number is XYZ, and Ahmed is right outside your door. Please open the door and collect the parcel. So the shopper is used to tracking. So we call the control has moved from the business to the shopper's hand. With options of video chatting, with options of immersing AR and VR, bringing the product, what IKEA does, shoppers have now been spoiled in terms of options available or in terms of technology, which makes it all the more encompassing for every retailer to either build it into it or be left out of it. So setting up a website, having products on it, and integrating a payment gateway is not an answer any longer. You need to be contemporary, you need to be updated, and more importantly, you need to be the change agent if you need to survive in this business.
I fully agree with that. I think we're being spoiled a lot these days. Moving on to that, Anuj, what are the levers that you are focusing on, and how are those changing in the whole scheme of things?
I want to start off with a point that I've said in one of the previous sessions here, which I think Kartik put across in a very detailed way. We are a couch generation. We are a couch potato, mate.
Yep. I'm not walking far, isn't it?
Exactly. He rightfully said users want it fast and user want it yesterday. If I place an order, if I place an order, Amazon should probably have a system where it now says not same day delivery, but we can have it delivered yesterday, because that's what users are expected right now. That is the era where we have gone on to, where he rightfully said users have been spoiled. And you were talking about the strategies, would omnichannel, if omnichannel is still the right approach. In taking that point, to answer your current question, I think some of the key factors that are now uh, leveraging the market is the approach that different businesses are taking. There is no longer a one size fits all approach. There is no longer, oh, you have to go omni-channel if you have to be successful. It's now become it's now come up to a level where different business realize that there are different paths to that same consumer, and unit economics being the key, it's not worth going after user who may not end up buying your product. So if I am, let's say, setting up an online business, and if I'm, let's say, in fashion, uh, the value that would be generated from me in defining my target audience to the finest of detail is second to none. Uh, Another example for that would be new D2C companies that are emerging. I was just speaking about it, but another example that I would share from this is a company that just got invested, I believe, a couple of months ago. I can't recall the name of that company. It's based out of US, and it's working in female mental health by sending out journals to women every month uh, on a subscription model. Now,
Nice.
that's one strategy that's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
definitely going to work just for them, but not for any other company. On the contrary, if you are, let's say, in men's grooming, you probably want to set up a different approach where you are setting up different subscriptions for different weeks at different frequencies. So that kind of approach is now what business are taking up forward right now. Gone are the days when you could offer huge discounts on the product to entice them, where you could say, oh no, the product's worth 500, but I'll give you 20% off, or I'll give you 40% off to buy it. You now actually have to bring in genuine value, because at this moment the profit margins are razor thin. Unit
Right.
economics is the key, and that's where every business is leveraging the current technology and the current infrastructure differently to move forward and to grow.
Yep, yep. I think you're right on that one as well. And if I'm a new business and I'm coming into the market here, uh, how do I set a strategy and how do I dominate? Am I learning from the past, or what's going to be the differentiator here? Kartik, could you tell us more about this one?
So if you're a new business trying to get into this space, A, chances of your survival basis a legacy understanding would be minimal. Businesses have moved because the shopper expectations have moved. And I go back to that. 12, 15 years ago, when I used to visit Singapore often, I remember going to the Starbucks in Temasek Boulevard, and I was extremely excited when the barista used to remember the coffee that I loved. But today, when I go to Amazon, and if Amazon fails to recognize me and Amazon fails to show me what I like, then I would think Amazon's lost the plot. If Netflix makes a mistake in recommending a movie that I would want to watch and it fails to show me a new release that I might be interested, I might move away from, because the margin of error that I give to these businesses are minimum. Hyper personalization is where the businesses are moving. Customer experience continues to be the only differentiator that businesses would have. See, and I would go into the details on this. Your, like I said in the beginning, your platform is democratized. Everybody can access Magento, everybody can access Shopify, everybody can access WooCommerce. It's about the dollars you have and the technical bandwidth you have. It's $20 an hour is what a web development firm charges anywhere in the world. It's $3,500 a month is what a web developer charges when you house them in-house. Same is in case of product. Now look at the businesses in India. There are almost 900 fashion portals in India with more than 200 brands. It's the same businesses, same brands available on all the portals. What differentiates is your entire experience. Do I understand what my shopper wants? Do I predict what he might look at? Do I offer him the right solution? Am I able to bring in value added services? I'm trying to buy a bike, let's say on a platform. I need to see where businesses have moved, and that there's one of the largest bike manufacturers in the world is Trax, and Trax has introduced what we call as a typical DTC, which is if you order a bike on a platform, you not only get a bike, you get a valet that brings in 3 bikes. He measures you, He delivers the bike that you want and he takes the other two bikes away with him, which is what even Smithsonian Mall did in 2009-10 in the UK when it was about into suits or into your men's grooming or suits stitching businesses. Expectations of shoppers have moved away in terms of your last mile connectivity, expectations of shoppers in terms of relationship building or a hyper personalization is what continues to be a differentiator. I would give you an example of Virgin Atlantic. Virgin Atlantic was flying in from the. I look at an example. I mean, this is an example of hyper personalization. Virgin Atlantic from New York to London gives you a service where at the New York airport somebody measures you, and by the time you land in London, you get your Savile Row suit ready in 8 hours. Now that's a level of experience of online businesses that people are seeing and people are delivering. So if one needs to succeed in this space, one needs to get along with his unit matrices right. One needs to get the customer experience impact on the.
Yeah.
And I would continue to vouch for it. Technology, a lot of investments are coming in this space, a lot of investments in the CRM space. Fresh Marketers or Fresh Suite 360, the latest release from Freshworks, is one of the leaders in this space and it continues to make a huge differentiator. So yeah, I would vouch for that space.
Yeah. Anuj, kind of moving on to you now. What do you think are the differentiators and what are the market opportunities at the moment? I mean, if we look at the bigger ecosystem of technology and where it's headed, where do you think, say, a new business or a startup should kind of focus here?
So there are two categories here. I'm going to divide this in. When you're talking about new business, are you a new brand or a new entity that's selling to the consumer? Or are you working in a B2B sector where you're acting in the supply chain to help those business fulfill that? Speaking about the former, if you are a business or if you're a new entity, again, repeating myself, direct to consumer, something which I'm very actively looking at, something which I think would be the next innovative thing to come across. But even otherwise as well, the whole pandemic situation has brought in one change where the dinosaurs that were never willing to get online are now finally coming in online. So that's one new industry change that we are seeing right now, where having an online presence is now it's now going to be the standard norm. There is still some resistance in going online, which I believe is gonna go down as we move on to the next year. My estimate is that by 2021, most of the major brands would be online. That anyone starting a brand would make sure that one of the early factors that they take into account when they are setting up their brand name or their brand identity is going to be developing that online presence. Moving on to the second part then about the fulfillment section. If you're a new startup that wants to get into that supply chain, I think one of the key factors or one of the key areas that I'm going to see some growth in is going to be in warehouse management. It's going to be in logistics. Because as we discussed before, users have been spoiled now. Swiggy, Zomato, all of us have served us so quickly that it's now a norm. It's now an industry standard. So for a new business that's just entering the sector, if they can come up with a solution where they are dividing they are dividing country into grids and then bringing in data and analytics to make sure that they can process deliveries faster, that's going to be amazing. One good example for this would be this company called Rivigo, Rivigo. I genuinely love what they have done. So those guys are into trucking business. Now, as per the standard, trucks are usually a very high risk business because a driver going from point A to point B will probably need some rest. There's only so many hours they can drive. And more often than not, truckers are used to pushing those hours. They have an incentive to get there early. They have an incentive to come back early. Uh, they are on the road constantly, so they don't get enough family time, and of course that causes mental health issues as well. Taking all of these factors into account, Rico came up with a solution where rather than one driver driving throughout the entire journey, they developed a system where they divided the country into grids, then subdivided it and kept on doing it until the algorithm could decide what would be a perfect route for just an 8-hour drive for a driver. So he would drive from point A to point B just for 8 hours, rest there, take take another vehicle back. That's going again from point B to point A, and either drive it themselves or uh, take the airline way where one of the other riders would give them a lift. That way, they have been able to increase the efficiency by 3x, because now rather than one driver driving it by 8 hours, you now have three driver driving in shift of 8 hours each.
Right.
And that's that's practically groundbreaking in a lot of ways. Without data, without analytics, without AI, these kinds of innovation would not be possible. And any
Yes.
company that can come up with a similar solution in a different side, in a different vertical way, be it B2C delivery or be it B2B delivery, like Safe Express has been doing. It's one of the best logistics companies that I've seen. So any company that had come up with that kind of a solution, or micro warehousing, to make sure that if, let's say, an offline distributorship for a product that's sitting in North India, uh, who would usually take probably a week to deliver to wholesalers or retailers in South India, can set up a micro warehouse across the country at a similar price compared to what they are paying right now, that would again be something groundbreaking. Uh, I,
Right.
I do see a couple of companies working on this. Yet to see which one gets it right. But yeah, that these are some of the new areas where I think the focus would shift, where new innovation would come across.
Good. Yeah, you're right. And then when we look at e-commerce itself and the space, I think rightly say that marketing, digital marketing, that's a huge, big thing on its own. From what I read and from what I hear, the cost of that marketing has gone down a little. I mean, when you are approaching the whole FB and the Googles and all that. But can you kind of talk us through that digital marketing space and how it's shaping up? Kartik, can you take this one?
Yeah. So let's say 2011 is when I set up my first e-commerce business in the fashion space. At that time, I remember spending around $54, $55 as a cost of acquisition, with an average revenue of just about $106, $107, which meant that by the time the shopper is third time, fourth time on my platform is when I would start breaking even on that business. Today, it has shrunk to the second visit. More often than not, it's the first visit. So cost of acquisition has come down significantly. And what has changed is, primarily in the past, it was a search display driven business with dollars pumped on impression, dollars pumped on search keywords, and left it to the Google algorithm to bring in traffic. And not a lot of emphasis was placed on conversions, or not a lot of emphasis was placed on average revenue per user. But now, with the entire digital suite evolving, businesses moving into shoppable, Google shoppable. Google shoppable today drives business at 1/7 the cost of acquisition of any other search algorithm. That's one. Second,
Mm.
a lot of social shopping has started coming in. So in the past, what Facebook and a merger of Facebook and Instagram, bringing in WhatsApp alongside it on its fold, has opened up a huge reach, relevance, frequency algorithm. What used to be a 8x, 9x reach has now gone up to a 27, 28x reach, and tried to deliver a 7 to 8x frequency, which necessarily makes sure that every time somebody invests a dollar on Google, on Facebook, he ends up getting at least 3.5 to 4x back in terms of businesses,
Mm.
or in terms of revenue streams. More importantly, dynamic retargeting that social media offers, or even Google offers, ensures that if shoppers have bought in through a primary stream and by any chance they leak because of either your website's functionalities, or because of your payment gateway failures, or for any matter of that, any of those matters, dynamic retargeting brings them back into the business. An entire new suite of content marketing, private publishers, or blog posts, or even getting into an influencer space has opened up something that we never experienced in the past. Also, programmatic inventory that display could not consume on your primary Google or Bing networks and being available is consumed by a lot of programmatic operators to make sure that that inventory also on the platforms is optimized to drive in a lot of traffic onto the business. And along with all this, there is a separate set of businesses which is working, or separate set of algorithms that are working on driving in traffic that already came onto your website through your multiple CRM suites. So what used to be an acquire game has now primarily become an acquisition, retention, and growth game, which makes sure that your cost of acquisition from $50-$55 has come down to around $14-$15. A lot of businesses have also realized that if I'm operating in Southeast Asia, along with English, I need to go vernacular. If I'm operating in the Middle East, along with English, I need to make sure I reach my local vernacular Arabic TG. And hence, a lot of aggregator affiliate platforms have started coming into play, which reach out to the TG in their own space and drive returns. Dollars in Google and dollars in social media were getting wasted in the past because of a lot of spillover effects. Let's say if I were to go into a geography like Saudi to run an e-commerce business, 70% of the business comes in from Riyadh, Dammam, and Jeddah, which are three large cities. But those three cities represent only 22% of my population. And hence, if I were to carpet bomb the entire country, I would end up wasting 4x to 5x dollars. But geolocational and locational advertising now, especially on search and on Facebook, ensures that I can drive traffic from a pinpoint accuracy rather than spending the money across the region. And hence, it gives me a lot of improvised results. More importantly, with GDPR regulations now being opened up in certain parts of the job, in certain parts, telecom, banking, and regulatory data available helps me consolidate, typically a big data, helps me consolidate a shopper's entire journey and get hyper personalized again in terms of the products that he's likely to require or propensity to shop. And hence, his chances of conversions are optimized. So, what marketing used to be about only showing my product to a shopper on the digital platform has now moved from showing, bringing him, and making him shop and make him shop more.
It sounds like a horrible thing to do if you're on the other end. If you're on the other end, it's a horrible thing to do.
Trust me, it would. And the results speak for themselves. I represent one of the largest local e-commerce retailers in this part of the world. I advise them on a regular basis. And we realized this White Friday or this Yellow Friday, the business has grown by at least 3x. The cost of acquisition has come down by 27% only because people not only shopped once, but they shopped 4 times during the Yellow Friday for different discounts, different deals. And more importantly, they shopped 72 to 75% more than what they shop every time, which means people are shrinking their visits, they're shrinking their transaction times, they're shrinking the number of times they shop, but they're increasing the revenue per user. And that is what a typical consumer marketing or a digital marketing program aims at.
Yeah, there we go. So I think those are the spikes that are coming out and all those graphs and news that we see as well. Anuj, would you like to weigh in on this?
Absolutely. I mean, I love talking about this. This is Kartik brought in one of my favorite topics. So, when you're, I'll share an analogy here, probably that'll put forward my point better. When Facebook started, none of us had the habit of uploading our pictures. We still had digital cameras back then. We were still taking pictures, but we were just practically doing a data transfer from the camera to our devices, and that's it. If we were to share data within people, that was again physical data transfer using USB. So when Facebook came in, fortunately, along that same time came in the iPhone, which kept on improving that technology, kept on improving their hardware to a level of portrait mode iPhone photography. And when that happened, it opened up a whole Pandora's box. Now, there's an entire industry of influencers just feeding off of Facebook, Instagram, and its other products. And that's the marquee of a good business. When you are starting something, you have to build an entire industry, an entire value chain off of it. So like Kartik was explaining, when you talk about e-commerce back in 2010, there was just carpet bombing. Because the idea, I still remember till this date, one of the key factors that was keeping our CAC high is when we would reach out to users to tell them they can buy online. They would always tell us, I don't want to, I'm scared someone will steal my card information and take away all my money. While, of course, there have been some instances, they were only handful of them. In 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 millions of transactions, just a couple of frauds were enough to scare the users. Ergo, it made sense to carpet bomb the entire country. It made sense for Flipkart, Snapdeal, Shopclose, everyone to just go ahead and tell everyone, buy online, buy online, buy online. And when that buy online mantra became the status quo, they decided, all right, that's it, we are done, let's change everything, let's now switch gears, we are on to the next level now. And then comes the geolocation, like Kartik mentioned, that if I'm targeting my ad, I no longer have to target a pair of denims that's probably a bit tattered or has some funky design to everyone, to mail across from 18 to 60. I now define my audience, even if it's something that's for the youth, even if let's say when you're talking about female fashion, you have a product that's being targeted to an to some of when some of our clients are targeting a product from 18 to 24, we tell them you're doing it wrong. Divide that from 18 to 21 and 21 to 24, because 18 to 21 they don't have money. 21 to 24 is when some of them are starting to make money, and then 24 to 27 is when they're going to start to spend.
Right.
So the age increment, which used to be, or the age bracket that used to be just 18 to 60, became 18 to 40, became 18 to 30, then 18 to 24. And now we are seeing it at an increment where it's growing at 3 or probably 5 years at a piece.
Right.
So that's where marketing has changed. And let's not forget, I'm going to add another industry vertical that e-commerce created into this: social commerce. Can't ignore it. Just like Facebook, prior to Facebook, there was no influencer. Likewise, prior to Facebook and this Amazon era that we live in, there was no social commerce. Now there exist companies where, take Misho for example, that has investment from Facebook, where rather than just sending a link to a product or drop shipping a product myself, I can act as a mediator digitally. Drop shipping is still a huge business model for small time sellers. And for them to go from, oh, I'm going to buy every product, keep small amount of inventory, and then ship it as and when it's needed, to setting up entire social commerce stores where they're just sending out bulk text over WhatsApp to all their users for any good product that they know will be of relevance to them, keeping a small margin in between, is practically generating great revenue for them. It's again, flip the affiliated marketing segment on its head, because back in 2010, 2011, there were a whole number of coupon websites that were acting as affiliated marketing partners for e-commerce companies.
Right.
All of them giving you a coupon and then redirecting you to the website, in return taking in a small 5 cents or a 7-cent fees. Now, for that era where, again, you're trying to just set up buy online as the mantra, it works. It no longer works now. So having a social channel as your affiliated partner that is driving sales by targeted referral network is, again, where marketing has evolved into. It's gone into its next phase. And I see this being the status quo for at least the next 4 to 5 years. It's only until 2025 is where I think this will probably evolve into a separate system or a separate ecosystem of its own. it's where it's going to step up its game, and something innovative has come up as well. So yeah, we are now in the new world order for digital marketing as well.
Fair enough. Good point on that one as well. And I think it's important to kind of highlight perhaps the trends as well. So I think we have about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about these trends a little bit. What's the next big thing here? Kartik, perhaps you can lead this one.
Absolutely. And I love this space, the new trends typically. And I was stunned
Yeah.
when I went to the IKEA website and I wanted to look at a particular product. And all I had to do was take a picture of my hall and the product would automatically sit in and it would move on its own. AR and VR in this space, especially in the experiential space, be it the magic mirror, be it
Hmm.
the assisted shopping, which is a video shopping, or be it this AR VR placement widgets on the product, is the next big thing, especially in what we call a specialty or niche product categories. Another big thing that I see evolving is taking a cue from what Amazon and Netflix have been doing, and typically 72% of Amazon's business comes in from this. They call it the recommender algorithms. Tyro is one of the largest players in this space. They use a combination of collaborative and content filtering to make sure that recommender algorithm works. So this is how, and to make it very easy. Every time I watch Mission Impossible, Netflix remembers that it's my choice and it shows me products in that typical space. Every time I buy a particular denim from Noon remembers and understands and shows me products what people like me would have bought. People or what I bought in the past. Because of that, what would I like? And people like me in terms of my demographics, psychographics would have bought. And hence, this is where it builds in a very strong average revenue per user, basket value, bill bucket penetrations, or more importantly, it makes sure that the entire solution selling works seamlessly. Your cost and your RFM of a shopper is optimized significantly. So for me, I think these two trends, typically your recommender algorithms and AR VR, especially in specialty retail, is what is going to be the two new trends that I would work on.
Right, right. I think you're right. Those are interesting ones. I've seen a few things as well with shopping and furnitures in my house. So, kind of touching on the investment side a little as well. We've been talking a lot about the topic. Let's talk about a little bit of investments and what's going on in that space as well. Perhaps Anuj, you can take this one. I've got a question. I've read this. Like, say, a new business is coming up, and they want to know more about that investment capital. What's it for? Where can I use it? And what progress that VCs like yourself want to see at that early stage?
If you are a new business that's coming up in this sector that wants to build something, that wants to raise an investment, one of the key factor that any investor would want to look into it is the value generation now. Gone are the days where for a VC, the important category would be how many users are you pulling in every month or how many clicks do you get. That's why carpet bombing was such a I would say industry practice back then. Now it's all about value generation. If you are working in a B2B sector where you're planning on selling the product as a SaaS, in a SaaS model to a business, it has to generate some real-time value where it's actually driving the efficiency up by at least 20-25%. Because only then it will make sense for the business to switch from their current practices to yours. Similarly, on the B2C side, if you are developing up a brand, it all comes down to your market strategy and the value proposition that you're bringing into the user as well. Because reaching out to them, there are n number of brands right now, most of them online. What is it that you are doing differently? I was in this panel with Gary, and he said this one thing. There's one thing that's not enough in this world right now, and that's content. Likewise, marketing, if done right, is going to be equivalent to it. In a consumerism time, in this era, there aren't enough products for us right now. That's a fact. And the reason for that is because users have different preference. If I am buying a product, I have a certain taste in it, and I would like to only stick with that certain taste because it helps me express myself and my individual identity. So reaching out to that right audience and then making sure that you stick with them and keep that user with you for a longer duration is that value generation that you can bring in, having them giving them a platform to express their individual identity. That's a mantra right now. If you are an e-commerce company and you want to reach out to users, you want to understand them, you want to capture them and then hold on to them, give them a platform through your products to express themselves.
Great, great. Kartik, how would you evaluate a company
Very, very
in this
differently.
space?
Very, very differently in terms of what we used to do in the past. Today, we don't evaluate it purely based as an idea. Like I said, idea is, I mean, everybody has a beautiful idea, a smart idea. We can come up with 25 new ideas every hour if we are paid for it. But
Yeah.
what is important is, do you have a profitable enterprise value? Do you have a proposition that is going to generate money? Are you going to have profitable shoppers? Are you going to have long term shoppers? Are you a differentiated player in the industry and not differentiated from a product point of view or a technology point of view? If you see, the business is slowly becoming what an automobile industry is like. There would be the one round of consolidations already happened between 2012 to 2016 across the world, where businesses have come together, venture funds were forced to bring businesses together. So the entire matrix of trying to create a new Amazon or a new Flipkart or a new Noon, or for that matter, a new ASOS, is no longer relevant. But ancillary industries, we would rather evaluate or we would rather support businesses that come in as an ancillary to the entire e-commerce space. Are you a big data player? Are you a content publishing house? Are you a social media business? Are you an influencer platform? Are you a big data business? Are you, more importantly, a last mile connectivity player? And if yes, in this space, how much value can you add to the overall business or overall ecosystem? That's one. Second, in the past, venture capitalists were also in a blind. They had no idea about how to even evaluate a business. In the last 7, 8 years, VCs have learned the hard way, and now they've built an entire arsenal. You want an e-commerce business to be set up? I have my entire web development suite. I have my entire digital marketing suite. I have an entire last mile connectivity. So all you need to do is come with your products and come with your specifications, sit in my outsourced office, run your business. If you make a profitable business, I'll give you round two of funding. If you don't make a profitable business, mate, too bad for you. So we see venture funds are now have built a plug and play ecosystem. So everybody has to go through the plug and play ecosystem. If you graduate out of it, if you move to the next level, if you show a proof of concept which is promising enough, then is where large dollars come into play. And that's exactly the way we evaluate any business. If you come up with a newer idea, if you go into businesses or sectors which haven't been looked at, or if you try and bridge 2 to 3 different businesses by bringing in adjacencies, we call it the bridge commerce. If the bridge commerce business is what you come in with, you might see potential basis the kind of offerings that you have. But otherwise, you have to be a part of this entire ecosystem and show a proof of concept. So it continues to be that way.
Great point. Thank you for that, Kartik. Gentlemen, we have about a few minutes left, 3 minutes to be precise. Anuj, would you like to sum it up for us here? Anything that you want to plug? Any last things that you want to talk about?
I think Karthik said it better than I could, mate. I love the one point that he said, though. VCs have been blind. It takes me back to the fundraising days of 2012, where you'd go out to a VC and they would have no idea about the business. Even companies from India that went to US to pitch their business model were turned down because they simply said, we don't understand the business. But yeah, sharing my final thoughts. Keep keep the unit economics in sight. It's fairly easy to lose everything by just momentarily losing sight of your unit economics. Uh, Unfortunately, Paytm Mall would be an example in this one. Company with hundreds of millions of dollars that was number 3 in the market share suddenly dropping out of the picture in a matter of months just because they lost sight of the user economics. And another thing which I would like to add, if you are a B2C company, I would say take a picture of Amazon. Uh, One of the reasons why Amazon is what it is right now is because of Jeff Bezos' user obsession. Be obsessed with the user. The lifetime value that you can generate from a user is second to none. It No amount of VC money, no amount of IPO, no amount of private equity will be equal to what you can generate from a user when they stay with you, when you keep them on a hook that the user needs you at all point in time. So just keep that user obsession. Make sure that you're generating real value and not something for the investors, not something for the pitch deck, uh, but something that's actually making a difference. If you're doing it, you're going to build something amazing.
Great. Great last words. Gentlemen, again, as always, good insights, great thoughts. And again, this is VCTV by LATOKEN. I thank you and come back soon for all our next shows. Thank you and bye bye.
Thank you so much.